Okay, we will call to order the April 18th, 2018 meeting of the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission. First order of business is to take a look at the agenda. Do we have anything, Mr. Hadley, that you have that needs changing?
No, sir, we don't.
Any
No
commissioners?
changes.
Agenda look okay? Let's have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We have the minutes from our March 21st meeting. Any corrections or additions to those minutes?
I'd make the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that item? If not, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. The minutes are approved. Okay. Our first order of business today is a rezoning request north of Dickinson. Mr. Hadley, you're going to introduce that for us?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is the second tier of lots in the Great Lakes subdivision that we heard the proposal for along the highway last meeting, and these particular lots were intended to be included, but they weren't included in the advertisement. So they are advertised now. We did receive a few phone calls from the public just asking similar questions to the last proposal, just because they run obviously the same mailing list. The applicant is here, I believe. Obviously staff would support this because it is part of the transition of the zoning for this particular area, north and south of town.
Okay, we did discuss this a month ago. Weren't able to act on it because it hadn't been noticed. Anything that the applicant wants to say? Mr. Schmeling?
Good morning, Chairman Jackson and Commission. Really nothing, a lot to add here. It's just that the zoning change and the future land use map change along the Highway 22 North, I feel definitely helped this project. And now when you go back approximately 600 feet plus to the east in the subdivision, we'd just like to change that to general industrial instead of the limited industrial to give a few more opportunities in there. So,
Okay.
any questions? Be glad to.
Questions for Mr. Schmeling? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything from commissioners? Okay, as a rezoning change, this is a public hearing, so we will open the meeting up to comment by the public on this particular rezoning request. If there's anybody in the audience that has any questions or any comments on this rezoning, please step forward, state your name. We'll try to answer your questions. Anybody? Any comments at all? Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing and look for comments or a motion by commissioners.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of REZ-001-18, zone change from general commercial to limited industrial, as depicted in attachment A and meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any more discussion on this request? Anything? Not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, with that, we will move to a request for a special use permit for a pet daycare operation. Again, Mr. Hadley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a special use permit, as you said, for a pet daycare. It's known as, are you familiar with it as, Happy Hounds, 1471 4th Avenue East. The applicant is going through, they're using an existing application, so we didn't charge them a fee. Going through the process, they do meet the intent of the new ordinance that the Planning Commission and City Commission approved. As you can see on the tail end of the report, our standards that we adopted were supposed to be pretty progressive as far as addressing how these operations are being used and utilized and the impact to neighborhoods. and limit the number of conditions that we supposedly or hopefully don't have to put on top of that. So you can see that there's 2 actual conditions of approval. And with that, haven't received any comments either for or against this application. I believe the applicant is here if she would like to add anything as well.
Okay, we should do that. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. I'm going to keep it really brief because I've been up here several times in front of all of you, so you know most about what Happy Hounds is about. Oh, Jessica Uran, sorry. I'm the owner and operator of Happy Hounds. I'm here today to obtain a special use permit under the new pet daycare code. Happy Hound meets all the requirements in Ordinance 1647. That information is included in the printout that you received in March, but I'd be happy to explain any of that with you, so if you have any questions.
Why don't you, just for the public, describe to us where it's located? Pin that down for us a little bit better.
We're at 1471 4th Avenue East, which is just a few blocks east of Applebee's, so it's right at my residence. All the daycare is inside my garage. We have a 3-stall garage, and then there's a doggy door that goes to the backyard.
Okay.
So we're inside and outside during the day.
Okay, any questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one, just to clarify. Jessica, you did read condition number 2 and you concur with it, or your other application, basically you were withdrawing that, and this application is just so we can finalize that initial application that you had.
Oh,
Did you see that on the staff report?
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's
Okay,
just so
thank
we
you.
can- It's so we can clear the other application
Sure.
off
Sure.
the book.
Anybody, anything? Thank you. Okay, again, this is a request for a special use permit. So we will open the meeting for comments from the public on this request. Anybody from the public have any questions, any comments to make concerning this request for special use permit? Anything from the public? If not, we will close the public hearing and look for comments from commissioners. And if there are no comments, a motion would be in order.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the petition for special use permit SUP-005-18 for a pet daycare, subject to all the listed conditions required by the commission with ordinance 1647 and listed conditions as meeting all requirements and intent of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health and safety and welfare.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? Not, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, the same sign. The motion carries. Okay, Mr. Hadley, item 3, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item 3 and 4 are related. Item 3 is a zone change for a 7-acre parcel for a preliminary plat. It's zoned agricultural right now, and they want to divide that into 2 lots, and that's to rural residential. The plat obviously is a preliminary plat, so you will see that again, but it's a preliminary one that just we're working through at this point. It's in the ETZ, adjacent to 35th Street, just southwest of 30th Avenue. The extension, just if you continue on past the middle school, it is on the northwest corner of that intersection, just down from there. There's existing home sites, family home sites that are existing on that side of the road right now. This would be at the end of that block. There's existing tree rows and whatnot in the area where they want to build. With that, we don't see a lot of issues. I think we had a discussion, Mr. Kubis related a discussion last month as far as providing services for this type of development. And I think the consensus was that we weren't looking to do that at this time. So with that, we haven't received any comments. I received a couple of calls inquiring from neighbors as to what the rezoning and what the plan is for this site and the actual plan. Obviously, the rezoning is something they have to do to subdivide those lots. The plat, preliminary plat, is the process to create 2 home sites there. So with that, I think the applicant and their representative is here as well to answer any other questions.
Good morning.
Good morning. Steve Rude with AE2S on behalf of the applicant, who's also here, if you have any particular questions. Yeah, this is just a splitting a 7-acre parcel into 2. The applicant intends to build a house on the west lot that you see on the map here, and just for his own personal residence. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Root? I have one, Mr. Root. There were some comments in the review about the configuration of the road right-of-way.
Yes.
Can you tell us how that's going to be resolved?
I worked it out with the city engineering, and they would like a 50-foot dedication north of the section line and a 25-foot utility easement beyond that. And that's, I revised the preliminary plat and sent it back. I don't know if they were able to get that into the package in time, but the one I'm holding right here shows you've got a 50-foot dedication.
I guess we don't have that, but,
Okay.
or do we in the plat, maybe?
I don't know if it was late last week, so I don't know if I might have held it up too long for them to get it to you. But.
Chairman Jackson, it didn't make this preliminary plat, but again, that's why it's coming forward as a preliminary. It will be in the
Sure.
final to be consistent with the comprehensive plan requirements for right-of-way.
And we're satisfied with that.
Correct.
Anything else for Mr. Rood? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This is a zoning change. We will ask if there are any comments from the public concerning the rezoning of the proposed Lupo subdivision. Please step forward if you have any questions or comments. Good morning.
Morning. I'm Rebecca Long. I'm the most recent house near where this is going. Is this, someone called, it's not being annexed to the city, correct?
It is not, ma'am.
Okay. And then this sounds like, is this for a personal house? Because it's listed as a subdivision. So you're not talking about putting up like 18 more homes? This is for personal?
It is technically a subdivision, but it is for one home, correct? Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's for the construction of one home.
Okay. And then the other thing is, just out of curiosity, are they planning on tying into the sewer system, or does this have to be septic?
At this point, we're not providing, that was the reason I said that comment, we're not providing, the city isn't providing any services to that site, which means no water, no sewer.
Okay, because I know that when I went through the hoops, I had to get a county easement because of the new laws, whatever you call them, suggesting that you need a minimum of an acre, depending on who you talk to, is a minimum of 3 to 5 acres for a septic system. You have to have room for 2 failed septic systems. And I had to jump through a lot of hoops. So if these go up, I just request that they have to jump through the same septic system hoops. I would hate that we had to go through extra things, pay extra money, and then these lots behind me would just be la-di-da.
Yeah, I think with the 7-acre site in dividing this up, they'll meet that intent, but that actually goes through the state of North Dakota.
Okay, because the picture just made it look like it was the exact 18 lots adjacent, and then we were just not certain if it was going to be plotted out for 18 sites. It was just one house, personal house, I don't really care.
We can get you to step forward.
I think there's a miscommunication here. From my understanding, when the letter went out to the residents in the surrounding area, along with the
It was
map,
puzzling.
it's not the right map.
Okay.
It's not the correct one.
Could you just state your name?
My name's Aaron Johansson. I am the son-in-law of the applicant, the Lupo subdivision, just looking to build the house in this area. But yeah, the map that was sent out by the city or whoever sent it out is not the correct map. So
Okay,
that's why
yeah.
it's totally confusing.
I think everyone down the street thought that someone was
Okay.
coming in to put in like 20 houses, and it's like, whoa.
No,
whoa, whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
it was some other subdivision, so.
Okay.
And I think Brandy had caught that and sent out the corrected ones
Okay, it hasn't
as
showed
well.
up yet.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, then those are my questions.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? Okay, we will close the public hearing and look to commissioners for comments or action.
Mr. Chairman, I think if they want to subdivide it, they have to go through Southwest District Health, because there is rulings on how many acres you need for a septic and drain field. And if they,
I don't think that's their intention.
I mean, that would come up later if they did decide to do that, so.
Anything else? We'll look for a motion then.
I move the City of Dickens Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of REZ 004-18 rezone to rural residential. And then I move the City of Dickens Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of PLB -003-18 Lupo subdivision preliminary plat as depicted in the attachment A, and meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, we will vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? The motion carries. With that, we will move to the preliminary plat for this same tract of ground. That was the rezoning request. Now we have a preliminary plat before us. Any more comments? Mr. Hadley?
No, sir, I don't think we do. With the right-of-way dedication, I think it'd be pretty well resolved.
Anything from commissioners? And I think with the preliminary plat, we do need public hearing, do we not? Yes. Did it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess that's kosher, huh? Yeah. Thank you. Well,
Did they vote?
I'm going to still ask if there's anybody from the public who does want to comment on the plat itself. It is a separate agenda item, and it appears there is not. Okay, so that item's taken care of. Item 5 is a final plat of the Skylark Meadows subdivision. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Skylark Meadows, 18-acre site, approximately 300 feet west of 114th Avenue Southwest on the south side of Old Highway 10. This particular is obviously in the ETZ. This particular parcel initially came in, and there was some discussion of dividing into further lots. They had some issues as far as access, and I believe at this time they're just dividing it into one parcel so they can build a home on the south end of it. Have fielded a few calls from the folks along 114th who were inquiring as to what the intent is there. Assuming the applicant is here, if the applicant is here, they can maybe address if they have future intentions or not. But at this time, it's a one-lot plot to construct a home.
Okay, is the applicant here? Good morning.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering, representing the owner of the property, Mark and Amy Graves. Mark Graves is here today as well, so if you do have any specific questions for the site, he can help address those as well. As Mr. Hadley indicated, this is an 18-acre single-lot subdivision. It's located just west of Pravatsky's subdivision in the ETZ on the southwest side of Dickinson. The owner's plans for the property are to just construct a shop and a residence for their private use at this time. Some of the further subdivision that Walter had indicated was through our due diligence for this property, the owner was just looking at potential to subdivide this and perhaps make some income on the property in the future. As I stated at this time, that is not their plan. They may consider that in the future, but that would be down the road. There was some comment in the staff report as well about approach permits. We have talked with Stark County and obtained an approach permit at the northwest corner of the property for access. I guess with that, if there's any questions for myself or Mark, we'd be happy to address those.
Andrew, track D, is that set up to be the, if there would be a road?
The tract D that was shown on the map was a certificate of survey that we did through the purchase of the property. This was originally, as you look at the actual subdivision plat, it's a larger area than just tract D.
Right.
There was 2 parcels that they purchased from the existing owner, and we're now coming back to basically plat this as 1 parcel.
Okay.
So that tract D would essentially become this subdivision and the whole thing.
Where did you say the access was gonna be for the approach?
It'll be at the northwest corner of the property. Mr. Heiser indicated that he had some desire to, in the future, if something to the west would develop, they could share that location, so that approach could be a widened approach and shared with future development if it occurs to the west. So we don't have so many approaches off of Highway 10.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hadley, this is actually a single action subdivision plat, correct?
Mhm.
Preliminary and final,
Mhm.
that,
That's correct, yes.
okay. So we'll open the public hearing. Anybody who has any comments or any questions about this subdivision, step forward. Please state your name and we'll try to answer your questions. Good morning.
I'm a tax man, so if I sound a little groggy, there's a reason for that. Larry Robinson's my name. We live on 114th Avenue Southwest, just directly east of this property. And just a few questions about it. I think you said the development is just for 1 house at this time at the north side of that development.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our concerns is this in the plan for annexation into the city at all?
It is not, sir.
Okay, it is not at this time. So they're responsible for water, sewer on their own. Just concerned if there's going to be any covenants with that, and I don't know whether this board has to approve covenants for any subdividing further down the road. Concerned about that because we have covenants on certain things about what you can and cannot do in Pravatsky subdivision. So just concerned about that down the road. Our main concern is drainage, as far as how drainage will go on that property. Because right now, we're a little concerned where we're located as far as if there's any more water coming to the east as to what effect that may have on our property, because the drainage isn't the best. If there's additional drainage to our side of the road. And I guess he addressed road access. It sounds like it's going to be on the west side of the property that's being proposed. I guess that's our concerns. I'm just wondering, I guess, if it's been addressed or it needs to be addressed before approval be given for the final plat.
Okay, I think some of the questions that you're asking are handled during building permit phases, correct? Do you want to explain that, Mr. Hadley?
Yeah, I'll start maybe with the covenants. The covenants are a private rules that are recorded with a subdivision that the subdivider actually records, and then as you buy a lot, they apply to you. In this particular case, if this person decides they want to put covenants on themselves, they're welcome to do that. The city doesn't enforce or isn't involved in that process. We really don't enforce or have the capability of enforcing those private regulations. The drainage would be, and this is, Chairman was addressing, the drainage for the building site, not necessarily the entire lot, but for the building site would be addressed during the building permit process. With the building permit, they have to have a positive drainage plan that doesn't impact other folks and
That is looked
obviously
at.
doesn't impact their own structure too. So,
Right now, the drainage on our subdivision basically comes down would be the border between these two properties or subdivisions.
mhm.
And then it turns and heads east right between our lot to the north. And we have a little bit higher, but like I said, any more water that way, we
Mhm.
may be in the floodplain. Of course, that's
Yeah.
one of our concerns.
They do have a responsibility to deal with the water on their site and not impact you any further. They obviously can't take that water away, but they can impact you further.
And since there's no annexation, there's no planned water sewer drainage,
No, there's not, sir.
which
And
I
then-
hope would include our area if that would happen too.
If we were going out there, I would assume we would address you as well.
Okay.
And then you had a question on road access, that would actually have to go, they'd have to get an approach permit for that.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else? Welcome, Mr.
I'm
Dvorak.
Robert Dvorak. I also own property along in that Pravatsky subdivision, and I'm a couple blocks or a couple lots north of Larry there. And we've had drainage problems in the past. Some of it's I don't know if it's not on that property, but it probably will be between our property and this one on the west side of our property. It has poor drainage and doesn't get into that drainage ditch that's in between the lots there. And when it does go through that drainage ditch to the east, through the industrial park, there's a real problem there. It doesn't go east. It's kind of a bottleneck there with drainage. I don't know if whoever in charge of that area would be. That's where the water backs up into our lots there, and we've already had water backed up where we had to pump our drainage systems, and so I don't know if that's a county problem or water board or whatever, but I guess we don't need any more water from that division to, create more problems, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dvorak. Mr. Schrank, maybe you can tell us, are there plans for any earthwork activities there other than the immediate area of the house?
There would not be. They would have a small access road to their shop. They would construct their shop and residence on the southern portion of the site is their current plan. So the majority of the site would be uninfected. There may even be a slight decrease as they put in grass instead of an open field and pasture that's out there today. You may even see, not significant, but you would argue that there would probably be a slight decrease with the Bermuda grasses and stuff that may be placed out there.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if there's nobody else, we're going to close the public hearing. Any commissioner thoughts or comments? Okay, what are your wishes, commissioners?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the FLP-002-18 final plat as depicted in attachment A plat and meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion from anybody? If If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, and Mr. Hadley, we have a preliminary and final plat on the Worthington subdivision.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is 16.6 acre site for Worthington. We heard a zone change last month for they're doing a large expansion there. It's where their existing tanks are located. The structures are across 20th Street Southwest from the existing Worthington facility. And it's their address is 1954 Main Street South. It's on the southwest corner of 20th Street and the southwest corner of Highway 22. This particular site obviously was zoned agricultural. They went through the zone change last month, and their intent is to get a preliminary final plat for this site. There wasn't any requirements from the county road supervisor as far as additional access right-of-way. I didn't feel it was necessary. Really not a lot of issues on this particular site. I'm not sure if they're using the reuse water from the city, but that really is kind of outside the plat review itself. If you look at the plat, the conditions, basically what we're going to be doing is having a development agreement that they're working on before it goes to city commission. They will address some of the deed restriction items for the overlay and finalize their site plan. So that really is the biggest issue on the site. Haven't received any comments on this particular request since our last meeting, but we are addressing in the development agreement the comment that was received on noise and then glare from the lights for the folks to the for the highway, and then also the folks to the north in the residences, so they don't have glare from their site. It will be site obscuring fencing and landscaping, and they'll meet the intent. They are working on the architectural renderings of the building, and then also decorative lighting and landscaping that will go along with this. That really is probably the biggest issues of this particular plat. It will clean up this corner and legitimize the operation that's there now. As you know, the special use permit that was issued was to Steffes Corporation, and that expired. So that's why they're going through this process. And I believe the applicant and their representative are here.
Okay, and maybe you said this and I missed it, but just as a way of review, review the zoning aspect of this tract. Did you talk about that?
We did that last month.
Okay.
We did that last month, and it was approved last night.
Okay. Just wanted the public to be aware of that the rezoning was done a month ago. Okay, is the applicant here? Do you have anything to say?
Thank you. Once again, Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering. I think Walter covered most of what we were planning on talking about today. This is essentially just to finish up the rezone process that we started last month, and as you stated, was approved last night. Similar to one of the previous applications, we have dedicated 50 feet of right-of-way with a 25-foot roadway utility easement to be consistent with your comprehensive plan that showed 20th Street as a future arterial. We are currently working through a development agreement and some of those conditions with city staff. We just made a few corrections here yesterday, and I think we're getting close on that agreement. So with that, I'd open up to any questions you may have.
Anything for Mr. Schrank?
Mr. Chairman, quick question for Mr. Schrank. Access, again, just to the county road, access will be on the 20th Street. Can you tell us about the approach permission that's going to take?
There are two existing approaches. One is centrally located on the property roughly, and one is towards the east edge of the property. We plan to use those two existing approaches for the site. We have talked to Mr. Heiser on those, and he was okay with those locations and those approaches as well, and did not ask for any improvements.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Schrank. Again, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public who would like to comment on the plat itself, please step forward, give us your comments. Any questions? Appears there are none, so we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion.
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of FLP-003-18 final plot as depicted in Attachment A plot, Attachment B, deed restrictions, Attachment C, development agreement, and meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code, and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, we will vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The motion carries. Okay, that is the extent of our action items in today's meeting. We do have a couple of other items we're going to discuss. Mr. Josephson, you're going to take the first item.
Good morning, Commissioner Steve Josephson. We'll make this pretty short for right now. It's just just letting you know of something that staff is going to be working on and bringing forward, we hope within the next month or so. What you have before you is the Renaissance Zone University Edition. It's approved recently, and it runs from 7th Avenue West over to 12th Avenue West, and from 1st Street West up to 2nd Street West. When we amended the Renaissance Zone, one of the things we talked about was the possibility of doing an overlay district. That area in there is zoned, I believe it's all zoned, I think it's all zoned R3 through there, high density residential. The thought was to have an overlay district that could allow some limited commercial that would serve the university, the staff and the students at the university. So this is a project that staff is going to undertake and bring something back for planning and zoning review within the next we hope within the next couple of months. We've already contacted President Mitzel from DSU to discuss this, and we're going to have to spend some time out there looking at the structures and probably getting some more input, from the university. But I just wanted to make you aware that this is something that a project that staff is undertaking, and we hope to have something to planning and zoning first for discussion and then for public hearing. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Comments?
I guess my question, Mr. Josephson, is with the property owners, what is the, how do we notice them of this intent? Or is it something they have to?
I think an overlay would take the same process as a rezoning process, would it not?
Yes.
So they can, I guess the word I'm looking for is opt out, or it really doesn't affect their property values as it is, it just gives them options, right? It goes from.
I would believe so. I don't think it
Right.
would affect the property value.
Well, I mean, if anything, it might make it more attractive.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Josephson. What uses do you envision? You, as staff, you must have talked about what kind of uses you might see there.
We might see some things possibly related to, supplies for the students, maybe, coffee shops, just walk-in type businesses that would serve that community. But part of what we'd like to do is in addition to talking to President Mitzel, had the idea after that last that meeting, the downtown meeting, when the governor came here, where they actually tapped a couple people from the university, a couple of students at the university, is possibly getting input, you know, from the students in that area, and see what they think would be, would be something that they, you know, that they want. I've also thought too of working with Stark Development to get some ideas, you know, from, you know, from them, possibly even surveying students, you know, limited survey to get some ideas. But it would be the sort of things that people could, it would be, you know, it would be a walk-up type business. It wouldn't be a destination like drive-to destination business, but the sort of things that people would, both staff and students would be, you know, would allow those opportunities. One thing I want to point out about the R3 zoning district is it's kind of unique in that it does allow for certain non-residential uses right now. You know, it's mostly office use, different types of office uses that are some, you know, some like childcare are permitted through by right, and others, you know, come through a special use permit. One of the things we'd probably have to look at in this area, just like the overlay district we did downtown, is some standards for parking that are not the same as we would have elsewhere because of limited space. But we still have a little work to bring back to you. That's the sort of stuff we envision, maybe the niche type businesses, the things that would serve, you know, serve people on the campus.
Do we have any idea at all? There's 5 blocks there. Do we have any idea at all as to how many of those properties are rental properties?
No, not at this point.
Do we have any way of
We can sure
finding
find,
that
I
out?
suspect that many of them are.
Yeah, I would suspect that also. I would say
I-
almost.
When I did the photography pictures for the Renaissance Zone expansion, I'd have to say that 95% of them are, at least,
And most of that would be student
yes.
rental.
I think it provides the opportunity that you see at some campuses where there is almost a little village-type atmosphere with shops and bookstores, or the possibility, like Steve said, of coffee shops or just little places, internet cafe, which are growing more and more popular. It gives in my opinion, the landowner some options other than just rentals.
Mr. Chairman, if I would offer, if I could, it'd be a personal, not a professional legal opinion, but I would throw out that the City of Madison and the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus has a wonderful pedestrian mall that connects that campus to the state capitol, and is, I think, just a beautiful example of the type of connectivity you can have between college campuses and government.
I'm just sitting here looking at this, wondering if there's an opportunity to close a street someplace, and, you know, you'd have to have good alley access if you did that, but at any rate, I think it's an interesting concept.
Sure, we'll move. And one of the things we find out, especially dealing with universities, is sometimes what you come up with is totally unexpected. And I would like to also thank Attorney Murtha for talking about Madison, Wisconsin, because I am an alum, I'm a Badger, and particularly appreciate her mention. But we move forward, and hope to bring something back to you in the near future.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Josephson. Okay, and the other item, Mr. Hadley, is the ongoing discussion about lot inventory.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I believe Stephen has a bunch of copies he's going to hand out to you. With Daryl in engineering, our GIS guys' help, significant help. He is a savior on this, and it also, he will allow us to re-query and redo this in a much easier fashion in the future. And I think it's a good, what Steve's going to pass out to you is some maps
Right, I'm just gonna.
And a
explain-
summary, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just explain what I'm handing out. One is, it's a set of maps of vacant parcels and named subdivisions. Then the second map is specific subdivisions that Chairman Jackson had asked about. Then there's also a list of those subdivisions. We went through and delineated in there, you know, what the uses were. These are residential. We concentrated on residential. And then the third thing is something that our GIS person had Daryl Hockholder had done, which is it's a summary of where all the vacant lots and a breakdown by zoning district. So I'm going to go ahead and hand those out right now, and just wanted to explain that so you didn't feel too overwhelmed.
I was overwhelmed, Mr. Chairman. It's like 84 pages, where like, really? All I want to know is what's vacant and where.
Oh, she already got it, but yeah. It was 102 before, so it's smaller than it was. The maps that he's handing out too are on the wall here. These are a little larger versions that we have. The hope is that, one, you could kind of look at the information, look at this, and then maybe we can visit on it. My intent, I guess, would be to have it online. We're gonna have to put a disclaimer on it, obviously, because today Shirley's gonna sell a house or a lot or something else, and it'll be outdated. And so, you know, it is truly a snapshot for April 1st, is I believe what it's dated. So, you know, it's never going to be current except for the day we give it to you. So it is a great tool. I mean, and it is Chairman Jackson has spent many hours with us as well, talking about the process and the importance of it. We do have a map when we start to look at our future land use and our comp plan update. We actually have a map inventory of every lot within the city that is vacant, and, you know, including old parcels where people have a home and they have the extra lot where they park the boat or do whatever on it. But in discussing it with Chairman Jackson, and totally agree, we identified the subdivisions that had the majority of the lots that people would actually build upon currently, and this is a good summary of that. So it is a lot of information. I think it's a lot of good, useful information. I think it's a lot of good information for the public as well to have, and for us, for future decisions on annexation and approval of new subdivisions.
Mr. Hadley, trying to word this correctly. In the past, there may have been some lack of zoning standards, and we have a mixture in some areas where there might be housing with light industrial kind of intertwined, either in the city limits or in our immediate ETZ. For somebody looking to develop that empty lot, like you just said, that's just a parking lot now, they're putting campers and boats on it, and say they want to put up a shop now to basically encompass what they're parking on an empty lot. There are rules that I think we may need to look at. If somebody just wants to put up a shop to clean up that area and say, hey, I want to put up a 40 by 50 and I can store all this stuff inside, I think our rules, if I remember correctly, right now it says there has to be a house.
It has to be established primary use, and the primary use of all of the residential lots is a home first and then accessory buildings.
But if it's,
second.
say it's not a residential lot, say it's zoned light industrial, and it's mixed in with residential next to it. I know there's a lot of it in the ETZ. There might be a few within the city, or even general commercial. Are we still allowing people to say it's zoned light industrial, but it's going to be right beside a residential, put up that small shop?
the house and the vacant lot are on the same parcel? Is
Well,
that- or-
no,
or
they're
owned?
separate,
Okay.
separate parcels, but they're just using it right now as.
If
as
it's
park-
industrial, they would be allowed to
Okay.
do it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if it's industrial, they'd be able to
But
build
their
a shop.
Their neighbors couldn't protest it out.
No.
Because it's zoned. Okay.
Right. Yeah, no,
That's,
that,
that's basically what I was getting to, is because there would be concern, you're putting up a shop without a house beside a residential, but it's zoned.
yeah.
You know, I think everybody knows this, but the ETZ oftentimes becomes an orphan with zoning and related topics because we have the zoning authority, but we don't do enforcement.
Enforcement, a big thing. We've come up upon that multiple.
We enforce a few things, Chairman Jackson, but yeah.
And
the
I was just
larger-
gonna say, maybe
the
I didn't
larger
say
things,
that
but yeah.
completely accurately.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, it is, and this truly is just the city limits.
Right.
You know, we talked about trying to do, but with the data out there isn't gonna be easy to collect and manipulate, but this does give us a snapshot of within city limits of what we have and don't have. We have a number of areas, to continue on with that, we have a number of areas that are zone residential that people own 2 or 3 lots, and they have vehicles and whatnot parked on it. We have gone through some lot line amendments to adjust those lots into one lot, and then they can actually build a garage on that one lot now that used to be 2 or 3. So there is a way for those people
Well,
to
if you look
make
at the
that
east
work.
side of town, you have a large section of general commercial intertwined within. There's manufacturing there, there's other industry, and then in between it, there's a couple houses sitting, residential houses. So these empty lots that are sitting here basically that are GC,
Mhm.
you know, if somebody wants to develop, clean it up, and put all the stuff they basically are parking out in the open inside of a building, for me, that would be encouraging. At least you're trying to clean up the way it looks, opposed to just storing things on it.
Unless it's in our, our overlay district, the homes that are zoned commercial or industrial or whatnot, they're really, what we've done is said that they have a lifespan of the life of the home. And after that, we see it transitioning to those other types of zoning district uses. So yes, then, they may not be popular with, as those vacant lots get built upon adjacent to them, but that would be allowed.
Yeah, I think my statement about enforcement wasn't very accurate, but back to the lot inventory, if we could. Ms. Josephson, what is the difference between these 2 maps that we have? Or who would like to?
The first map is, that was Daryl's, that showed everything, all the subdivisions where there were, vacant lots. The second map is the one you had sent,
Okay,
you had
my
sent us
2
an
maps
email.
are the same.
Pardon, well, they're supposed to be different.
Mine are the same.
One of them says as current, oh, they are,
See.
okay.
If you look, it's got
Vacant
full
lots,
residential vacant.
currently zoned.
Upper left, it should have the label of the map.
Well, it says, one is vacant lots named subdivision, and the other one is vacant lots select. The select subdivision, that's on the second page. Up in the left-hand corner, it should
here.
say vacant lot
Should say.
select subdivision.
Mine say the same thing. Oh, no, they don't. Oh, they don't.
So this one, this map that says select, these are the ones when Gene came in to visit with us. This is a representation of that small map. These are the more pertinent subdivisions that are out there that are more apt to be developed in the consensus of
Okay, but
Steve
Walt,
and Gene and I.
I'm looking at the parcels themselves that are colored, and I can't find any difference.
Well, I can see one. This
Can you?
one here is different.
Yeah.
Well, yours isn't. though.
All these down here,
Yeah.
all these down here.
Mine look exactly
Yeah,
the same.
the ones we have.
Aren't like these?
No, the
Oh.
ones we have are,
They're
Gene is correct, they are identical. The wording is different,
The title is different,
yeah,
Okay.
but the
But-
map is the same.
the map is exactly.
Well, then I
the
invite
same.
you to come up here and look at these.
Okay, I wonder if, well,
Because you can even visually see yours are different from here.
Right, yeah.
Ours are exactly the same.
Okay. Well, this
think
was.
If you could get us a copy of the right one,
Okay.
maybe stick it in the mail or something, because I think that's important to differentiate between the two.
So they are.
You know, Mr.
This was
Chairman,
a,
this is a great tool. You're going to be getting a lot of calls because I'm going to scan this and send it to all the Badlands Board members because we get called every day, where are the vacant lots? We want to have a builder, we want to hire a builder. This is a great tool right here. So they'll be calling you.
How preliminary is this? Should Shirley be waiting a little bit, or are we ready for her to do that?
no, it's,
Okay.
I mean, like I said, this is a tool and it's already dated. She might have sold 2 or 3 of them already, or somebody else in her office might have, or, you know, I mean, it isn't something that we're gonna be able to share and say in September, someone's gonna look at it and go, well, these aren't vacant anymore. Well, the effort that it takes to do this, even with Daryl's help, is quite an effort. But the baseline for it is set now, so we have that in place. We will get you the smaller maps. You know, maybe that's something that, Stephen, maybe you could even ask Daryl if he could fix and.
We can work that. We can
And get
work
it
that
to
out.
him. This was kind of a rush from when Gene came in the end of last week. We met and talked about this. We were just trying to get this information to you as soon as we could rather than wait another month. So the big maps are correct. So I don't know, you know, what selection. He probably just selected it when he went to print them out, the same query and.
Yeah,
wound
I
up
can see
having
the
that.
differences there.
Yeah,
But we don't
so I
have it
mean,
here.
these definitely are the right ones. The ones that you were sent, as well should be the right ones, because that's what these were printed off of, so.
The reason I think that this should be interesting to this board is if we get a proposal for a major subdivision, we'll have a lot of different things to consider. But one is, you know, how many lots do we have? Do we have enough? Do we need another 100? You know, those kinds of questions. And we'll probably each have different opinions about that. But at least we'll have some basis. I said to Walt and Steve that I think there's a lot of English that has to be put on this. For instance, I think I saw that all the Pine Crest is included in this. You know how realistic it is to count on development there? Who knows? On the other hand, I think we've got some other parcels that are not platted that we would approve in a heartbeat. That Shenago property.
You're talking this stuff right in here.
A small piece of
Right.
it, maybe not the whole thing.
10th
But
Street East.
Wasn't there a
we've
plat-
had other proposals.
Wasn't there a plat submitted at one point for that?
Sure. We know now that
For
the
Shenago
school,
area?
the school has bought that property west of Sierra Ridge. And said publicly that they'll be selling off a portion of that, and if that were to happen, I don't think we'd hesitate to approve a subdivision up there. It's infill.
Well, and we've done some preliminary work as a city, looking at the structure of streets in that area, the continuation of 15th. What, we try to envision what 15th might look like as it connects over to West Ridge. And then we also have to take into consideration that my understanding is, and Mr. Kubis could maybe tell me, I think the school district bought another 20 acres on the east side of town.
I'm not positive if that's been official, but
Okay.
they've been looking for a site.
Over there for a possibility of an elementary. So, in that, we're going to have to look at how that impacts road structure and drainage in that area and everything else.
Board needs to know, these two gentlemen have spent a lot of time on this, but especially Daryl, and give him our thanks, if you
Yeah,
would.
yeah, I thank him every time I see him.
Yeah, do that.
Because it is a big undertaking, but it is a very useful tool.
I just wanted to add that, you know, adding on to something that Commissioner Dukart said, is that I know from time to time I'll talk to Ryan Gillick, and he'll say that people will come to him and say, where are there vacant commercial and industrial lots in the city? And so this could also be used as an economic development tool.
Only have one other thing to add on this is that, you know, we were kind of focusing on residential, but what this actually also showed with, you know, is interesting with the changes that we've had for requests from commercial to light industrial, limited industrial, or industrial in the ETZ. It shows that we don't have as many industrial or limited industrial lots. And so it actually is proving the point that maybe we should relook at some of our corridors, make sure that their entries are beautified as they're developed, but also focus the commercial back into the downtown, back into the mall, back into some of the places that we have that are already commercially zoned, and not extend that out. So it does kind of paint that picture as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any commissioners have anything else?
And we can have another I mean, you know, it's a lot of information, and if you see something that, you know, surely if you see something that you look at and go, you know, we can always have kind of a running list. Daryl's done a great job of organizing it, but we've still, every week, you know, when we meet, we'll find something little that we tweak or change or whatever. Gene's been a great asset because he knows everything about what's happened here, and so that's good to have his eyes looking at it, so we know kind of it's on the right track. Craig, same thing. You know, Craig hasn't been as involved in it, but, you know, he can surely look at it, and, you know, his value is great, too, as far as historical value, what's there and what's not.
Chairman Jackson, I just wanted to bring up something, just for something to think about in the future. I mean, probably as everybody knows, you've read the news about the Bonton Corporation going into bankruptcy and then possibly into liquidation. And of course, this affects us here because that's one of the primary tenants at Prairie Hills Mall. It's also, this is a national thing too, and we're seeing how a national trend is caught up with a place like Dickinson. Nothing immediate, but, you know, but land uses transition over time. So, you know, what's going on up with that closure and with the mall, we may see some transitions in that area. Just look into the future. Not looking into a crystal ball and saying this is what's going to happen, but we may see there may be things coming before us as staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission, you know, some changes that could happen. Of course, I think everyone's saddened to see them go because that's going to create a hole in the economy here and our lifestyle. But it's just something to think about as we're going to hit a transition just like the rest of the nation is, you know, where they're moving away from the big malls onto something else. And I'm just saddened to see the decline of the department store, which is an American institution. But that's all, just something to think about for the future.
Anything else from anybody? I don't see much for public out here, but, okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.